What's going on, guys? Your boy Fluff here. Today, as promised, we're going to show you guys what we've been playing in stream for TXIII lately. This thing is crazy fast. Corpse Lance is flying all over the screen. Everything dies. All you got to do is just pick up the DBs and just move on. This is going to be one of the stronger variations for TXIII for the Necromancer, and we're excited to bring it to you guys. We're calling it the Pesti-LANCE Necro, because the lance in the... Let's get into it. Quick caveat here, guys. I want to give credit where credit's due. This isn't entirely my build. You know, this came to us from another YouTube content creator. His name is SVR. If you guys haven't checked him out, he's an amazing wizard. But I was on Reddit like a month ago, and someone had posted a build a lot like Blight Spirit. It was just slower, and so I said, hey, you know, maybe check this build out. It's kind of slower than this build, right? So then SVR comments on my build and says, hey, that's kind of a slower auto lancer. So I'm like, who's this guy? What is he talking about? So of course, I take that as a challenge. I go test out SVR's build, and while it was pretty fast, it didn't really compare to the Blight Spear, but with just a couple changes, guys, just a couple changes, we made this thing crazy fast. Now, SVR also wanted me to mention where he got his build idea from, which was from Master Bob. From last season, you could wear 2-piece Pestilence and put some other pieces together and make a pretty strong T11 build. But with the changes to Pestilence, this thing's ready to go for TXIII. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into the build. And just like always, we're going to start with what are we juicing up here. This build revolves around Corpse Lance. How are we going to juice up Corpse Lance? One, we're using the Pestilence set, which you guys know from watching Razor Teeth, from watching Blight Spear, that this juices up your Corpse Lance like crazy. Not only do you get a damage buff from the 6-piece, which says Corpse Lance damage is increased by 1650, but you also get the 2-piece bonus, which says each corpse you consume fires a Corpse Lance at a nearby enemy. And we're going to have a ton of corpses to fire off here. Plus, we're using Land of the Dead, so we get unlimited corpses while Land of the Dead is active. We're also using the Corpse Whisper Pauldrons, which says Corpse Lance damage is increased by up to 30% for 3 seconds when you consume a corpse, max 20 stacks. So we're going to have another 600% damage multiplier as long as this effect stays up. We're going to be using the Johnstone, which says, you know, every single time you exit Land of the Dead, basically, you get 200% damage on your next 50 Corpse Lances. And we're going to be able to almost roll this thing over like crazy because we're getting insane amounts of cooldown reduction. We're also using a Crisbin Sentence, as you guys know, a staple in basically every Necro build, because you deal up to 100% increased damage to slowed enemies or triple the bonus against enemies afflicted by any other control impairing effect. And we're basically going to have 100% uptime on this, so boom, another 300% damage modifier. We're also running Relina's Shadowhook in the cube, which says every point of maximum essence increases your damage by 0.5%, and bone spikes, blah, blah, blah. We don't care about that secondary effect. So that's basically saying every point of maximum essence increases your damage. You basically take your essence pool, you divide it by 2, and that's your damage modifier. But for the purpose of this build, we're actually going to be using Simulacrum with Reservoir, which will basically create a duplicate of you, which will do nothing in this build, since you're not casting any secondary skills. But he'll increase your maximum essence pool by 100%. So that will take, say, this 308 essence pool and multiply it by 2, so that gets 616 essence. So while Relina's Shadowhook is in the cube and we have Simulacrum going, we're basically doubling our essence pool and then dividing that by 2 to get the damage modifier, which in this case is our base essence, which is 308% damage modifier, which is crazy. So just like always, you might be thinking, okay, cool, Land of the Dead, huge cooldown, Simulacrum, huge cooldown. I mean, what's the gimmick here? First and foremost, we are stacking crazy amounts of CDR here. We have CDR in gloves, shoulders, gem in the helmet. We're wearing the Vigilant belt. We have cooldown on both the weapon and the offhand. The dream is to have cooldown on both rings and the necklace. We're also wearing a Leoric's crown in the cube, which will double the effectiveness of the gem in our helmet. So we're getting just insane amounts of cooldown reduction here, plus a Gogok of Swiftness, which will increase our cooldown reduction by another 15%. So literally everywhere we can get cooldown reduction here, we're gonna get it. Plus, we're wearing the Ingam, which says your skill cooldowns are reduced by 10 seconds for 15 seconds after killing an elite pack. And we're gonna be rocking this thing all the time and just bringing down the Land of Dead like crazy. Now, why Visceral Impact? Again, guys, we're gonna be wearing the Crisbin Sentence. And since the Corpse Lance is going to be firing off on basically every mob and stunning them, it's going to proc the triple damage bonus from Crisbin Sentence. Now, since Corpse Lance with Visceral Impact is going to be proccing our Crisbin Sentence we don't have to run Land of the Dead with Frozen Lance. We can actually run Shallow Graves, which will basically increase the duration of Land of the Dead to 12 seconds instead of 10, which might not sound like a lot, but this is what gives us basically 100% uptime on Land of the Dead, assuming you get 2 elite packs. And you guys will see, if you're in a big open map on this build, there's nothing that can stop you. But the reason we've gone this crazy high CDR with instead of some of the other options is because you're not always going to get the best of the best, right? You're not always going to get a big open map with a ton of leads. You're going to get that new, $15 map. You're going to get barracks. You're going to get sewers. You're going to get some terrible maps with some terrible density. Other skills here, we're going to use Blood Rush with Molting, no brainer. It drops a corpse, which you can then use to consume to fire a corpse lance. And of course, when Ingyam is up, you're able to spam this ability, so the corpse generation is even better. This can really help you, finish off an elite, get a chain of death started on your screen, which leads us into the command golem with Flesh Golem. This guy is pretty great for, A, finishing off elite pack, B, starting out this kind of perpetual death that happens on your screen. As soon as you start generating some corpses and there's actually mobs to die, it just kind of, the corpse lance and the death just kind of perpetuates and everything on the screen dies. But sometimes you need a few corpses to get that momentum going. Finally, again, of course, we're using Devour Cannibalize. We need to consume corpses to fire the corpse lances from the Pesti-LANCE 2-piece. And what better skill than Devour Cannibalize? This thing heals you like crazy. And the speed at which it can be fired off for consuming corpses is just unparalleled. Sumiak with Reservoir we talked about. Again, he's literally going to do nothing. You're going to pop him out there, and he's just going to stand around and just kind of watch you just destroy everything. He's just going to be in awe of your ability to kill. Because again, he only duplicates secondary skills, and we have no secondary skills here. For passives, we're going to run Final Service because you are going to be really squishy in this build, and there's things you can do for toughness, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But you don't want to lose those pools of reflection on T13. Those are really important. Standalone, we have no pets but the Golem, so we're going to get a 90% armor buff. Overwhelming Essence, again, we're using Simulacrum and Relina Shadowhook in the cube, so buffing our essence pool just gives you straight damage, so this passive is amazing. And of course, we're using Blood as Power. We're going to be spamming Blood Rush and taking our own health like crazy, plus mobs are going to do damage to us. So we're going to actually be able to proc Blood as Power on ourselves pretty often. Now, while I love this build for T13, and it's really, really fast, as you guys will see in the videos above, I don't like this build for GRs, and so we've literally made this a T13 setup. And so, of course, we're going to use Band of Avarice, which says each time you pick up gold, increase your gold, health, and pickup radius by 1 per 10 seconds, stacking up to 30 times. So when this thing's at its full effect, you're going to get 30 pickup radius, which is crazy. You don't have to chase after globes. You don't have to chase after gold. It just picks everything up on the screen, which can keep your momentum really, really fast. And that's what we're all about, speed, momentum. And we're going to use that in conjunction with Boon of the Hoarder, which gives you a 100% chance when killing an enemy to get an explosion of gold. So we're going to basically have 100% uptime on this 30 pickup radius. You're basically just dashing across the map, just picking up Death's Breath. You don't really have to do anything. You're just watching everything die. For third gen choice, of course, we're using Bane of the Trapped. Straight damage against enemies inflicted by control impairing effects. And then guess what? Again, everything's going to be stunned because of visceral impact. For bracers, we're using Nemesis. No brainer here, guys. Nemesis and Ingyam go together like peas and carrots. Being able to proc those elites off shrines is just OP. The offhand in this setup is literally just a stat stick. So you can use Lost Time, Bone Ringer, whatever you want. The last item is Ring of Royal Grandeur, and that allows us to either cube the Leoric's Crown or cube Corpse Twister Pauldrons, whichever one you have better of, guys. Just wear that. We talked about skills, we talked about passives, we talked about legendary gems, we talked about the gear. Let's just quickly go over some of the variations you can do here. Now, if you're all about that toughness life, or if you're playing hardcore, definitely give Gold Wrap a try instead of Vigilant Pelt. You're going to be getting gold like absolutely crazy on this build because you are, again, using Boon of the Hoarder plus Avarice Bands. You're picking up gold like crazy, and your toughness is going to shoot to the roof if you use a Gold Wrap. So if you kind of want to just face roll T13 and not have to worry about, standing and stuff and porting around, definitely use a Gold Wrap. I'd probably recommend that most of you out there run a Gold Wrap instead of Vigilant Belt. But for me, I say, the hell with it, embrace the squish. Let's wear the Vigilant Belt. Let's get more cooldown reduction. Let's go crazy. Another variation that I quite like, and I would probably run this if I could get a Dreamroll Johnstone with cooldown. If I could get cooldown on my necklace, I might drop Leoric's Crown in the cube to pick up Stewart's Greaves and run that full time. Because being able to have 100% movement speed would really help out for those terrible rifts. But in a rift that's really quite good, you know, Leoric's Crown is going to be a better choice than Stewart's Grease because you're going to have 100% uptime on your Ingyam, so you're just always going to be blood rushing for movement. But again, we don't get a perfect rift every time, so Stewart's Grease are a really solid choice. Another option, if you find you're just not doing enough damage, you could basically drop the gold idea from this build altogether. You could drop, you know, Boon of the Hoarder plus Avarice Band, you know, run something like a COE with Zai's Stone of Vengeance. But again, chasing after those globes and the gold, it'll slow you down just a little bit. So one of the questions I know I'm going to get right out of the box is, again, Fluff, how do we open doors? You're going to use the corpse that you generate from your blood rush to break the doors. And since you're going to have Numlock going off, this can be a little tricky, right? Because you're going to dash, but it's going to auto-consume, so that's going to do you no good. The door's not broken. So what I do is I hold my force move, which delays the Numlock trick from happening. I dash, and I break the door with the Corpse Lance. Another question I know I'm probably going to get is, Fluff, can I wear Relina's Shadowhook instead of Ingyam and an offhand? The answer is yes, you could, but again, guys, it's pretty much always going to be worth it on a high CDR build to run a one-hander plus a Phylactery, plus the damage is pretty comparable versus a two-hander. You know, this is a lot like Wizard. You're not going to see a lot of Wizards running around wearing a two-hander. The same thing applies to Necro. You're just getting more stats for wearing a one-hander and an offhand. Now, as you guys can see, like, well, it requires a ton of gear, you know, ancient, everything, blah, blah, blah. No, guys, this is my seasonal character. We're already running this build on T13. You know, we got 1,000 Paragon. We basically have 3 augments and a bunch of items that still aren't that great. Like my Avarice Band's pretty terrible. Crispin, nothing to write home about. Quick stat priority here. The gloves, you want crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction, intelligence. Again, high CDR builds, we're all about that cooldown reduction. Shoulders, int vite, cooldown reduction with Corpse Lance damage. Helmet, int vite, crit chance. Chest, int vite, Corpse Lance damage with 3 sockets. Belt, int vite, life with cooldown reduction. Pants, int vite, armor. Boots, int vite, armor with movement speed. And the weapon, the dream was realized this season. You want damage percent, cooldown reduction, attack speed, and of course a damage roll. You want to be able to roll off the intelligence. The offhand, again, guys, is just a stat stick. Int, crit chance, cooldown reductions are the main 3. You could go vitality or Corpse Lance damage. It's up to you guys. Bracers, physical, int vite, crit chance. On the necklace, you want the dream. You want crit damage, crit chance, a socket, and preferably cooldown reduction. But if you can get physical, if you get intelligence, it'll work until you get the dream. Ring slots, you know, crit damage, crit chance, cooldown reduction are going to be the top priority. Avarice Band can roll the dream with crit chance, cooldown reduction, crit damage socket. Crisby cannot. The best thing you're going to see on this is something like this: attack speed, crit damage, cooldown reduction, socket. But that's basically going to do it for the guide. As always, big shout out to all my supporters on Twitch and Patreon. We love you guys. You guys make this thing possible. If you're looking to support the channel, of course, drop a like, drop a subscribe. You know, come over to Twitch. You could donate, you could subscribe, you can support me on Patreon. Whatever you guys are comfortable with, it really helps a lot. But that's basically it. As always, guys, like, subscribe, come over to Twitch, ask your questions. We love you guys. Peace out.
Guardian has come. That needs to recharge.